Good morning, students. Yesterday we had seen how temple construction and temple building was taken on such a massive scale in Mesopotamian civilization, and whole towns and cities were coming around those major temples. So today we start here with this paragraph, that is where we had left earlier. Today, bronze tools came into use for various crafts. Now you have to understand one very important thing. I have always maintained that bronze, and that's how historians see when a community, when a civilization, or when a society starts using bronze, it gives you an impression of a much more intelligent and a smart civilization, because bronze is not like gold and silver, which is found in nature in pure form. Bronze is not found in nature in pure form. It is a metal alloy. You have to use your intelligence. You have to add copper, tin, and other important metals to come up with this alloy of bronze. And so naturally it involves a great amount of melting of different metals at right temperatures and then the right proportion. Everything is important. So if the bronze tools were now being made and produced by the civilization, definitely it was not a civilization in the early stages of development. Definitely it had been through that period, and now it had graduated into a much advanced and an intelligent sphere of existence. Now, bronze tools came into use for various crafts, and the architects learned to construct built columns. There being no suitable word, hundreds of people were put into work at making and baking clay cones that would be pushed into temple walls, painted in different colors, creating a colorful mosaic. Now, in sculpture, there are superb achievements, not in easily available clay, but in imported stone as well. And then there was technological landmark that we can say, that was the potter's wheel. That is something which we had also covered yesterday. Okay, today, then we go further down. Now, I want you to look at this figure. Impression of a cylindrical seal, because the seal was very, very important in that's how the people were expressing themselves. Whether in terms of the state used by the state to mark and to brand certain things, and also to communicate. The bearded armed standing figure is similar in dress and hairstyle to the hero of the stele. Steles are stone slabs with inscriptions or engravings. No three prisoners of war, this is very important, three prisoners of war, their arms bound, and a fourth man beseeching the war leader. As you can see, there are a few soldiers, that is this one caning the prisoners who are tied, and their arms are and their limbs are tied, the feet and the hands, and all of that is tied by rope or something, and they are also appears to be that they are being beaten. And this is the gentleman, probably he happens to be the leader, and he is beseeching essentially implies that you really request, and very fervently and very urgently request someone for something. So that's what beseeching means. Now, life in the city. Now, as we have seen in throughout, that the Mesopotamian civilization, like Indus Valley civilization, was an urban civilization, and people were much more into the urban way of life. Of course, agriculture and pastoralism very much existed, because that was something which was the main economic activity in those years. Remember, students, we are talking about 5,000 years ago, right? 6,000 years ago. So naturally, agriculture, the whole world, the whole economic activity moved around agriculture, right? So definitely, that was the only and the most important industry for any civilization, whether a rural civilization or whether an urban civilization. We had this is something which was common to all the civilizations, that is the prominence of agriculture. But unlike, do not be in the mindset that unlike today, where you see that a nation does not have factories and large banks and old huge hotels and those kind of things, and if a country depends mainly on agriculture, you think that it is a developing economy. It is not yet a developed economy, because it depends for its all its needs on the natural resources. And you measure today, in today's world, that a country would be developed and progressed and advanced if it has huge factories, it manufactures cars, it manufactures aeroplanes, it manufactures all that thing. But then 6,000 years ago, agriculture was the most important activity. So a society could definitely be a very urban society. Don't measure it in from today's perspective. Now, life in the city. We know from legal texts, disputes, inherited matters, etc., that the Mesopotamian civilization had a nuclear family, and where nuclear family was a norm, although a married son and his family often resided with his parents. The father was the head of the family. We know a little about the procedures for marriage. A declaration was made about the willingness to marry, the bride's parent giving them consent to marriage. Guys, we have also seen this yesterday, that this is something which exists even today, right? This is something which is always there in all their society. It exists in the Middle East even now, and even in Indian society, that's how it is. Uh, we have also seen how important, how different Mohenjo-daro civilization was compared to the Mesopotamian civilization. The Mesopotamian civilization, though being an urban society, just like our Indus Valley, but the people in Indus Valley were far, far more concerned and particular about the the cleanliness on the streets, the drains, then and of course how they were also very particular about the town planning. They did not want the whole thing to be cluttered and congested. So this is something which Indus Valley civilization was much ahead when it came to these measures and these steps that had been taken in light came into the yeah, yet people seem to have swept all the household refuse to the streets to be trodden underfoot. Just imagine, whole the drainage system, everything just opening right in front of the road which you have. Now, this made street levels rise, and over time, the thresholds of houses had also to be raised so that no mud would flow inside after the rains. It's so dirty and so unorganized. It would be all muck all around, garbage all around. Light came into rooms not from the windows but from the doorways opening into the courtyards. Now, they also had a system of courtyards like in this valley, and this would also have given families their privacy. But there were superstitions about houses recorded in omen tablets at Ur. A, a raised threshold brought wealth. A front door that did not open towards another house was lucky. That is what people believed in those times, was that yes, if your front door, the front door of your house, it was right facing to the front door of someone else's house, it was not a good thing. It would bring bad luck. Okay, so these kind of thoughts which is there, some, and different belief systems which are there in all different societies. If you read about the tradition of Russia, they would be having their own things that they did not do. If you go to the Chinese, they would be having their own things that they preferred and they did not prefer. Okay. uh, a trading town in a pastoral zone. Now, after 2000 BC, the royal capital of Mari flourished. You would have noticed in the maps, students, you would have to go through these maps. I can't draw them. I wish I had a board here. And that Mari stands not on the southern plain with its highly productive agriculture, but much further upstream on the Euphrates. Okay, that is much much closer to the source of river Euphrates. Okay, the color coding shows that the agriculture and animal rearing were carried out close to each other in this region. Some communities in the kingdom of Mari had both farmers and pastoralists. Guys, I've explained it time and again, but let me do it once again. Pastoralists are those people who are now into the rearing of animals, taking up milk, dairy product, cheese, trading in their skin, then trading in their fur, and then if you have things like sheep, then of course for wool as well. So the whole thing, the whole economic activity moves around the animals. Okay, and definitely when you go into pastoralism, then if the whole economic activity is around animals, then you need them to feed, and if those animals need to be fed, and naturally then you have, as we saw in the beginning of this chapter, that you had the grasslands where all those animals, those in hundreds and thousands, they would feed themselves. Okay, so and at the same time, the town at Mari, they also had not just the pastoralism, but they also had farmers because they were around the river and Euphrates. So naturally, they were also into farming. Now, herders needed to exchange young animals, cheese, leather, and meat in return for grain, metal tools, etc. And the manure of a penned flock is also of great use to a farmer. Yet at the same time, there may be a conflict. Okay, this is something herders needed to exchange young guys. In the earlier times, there was the whole trading activity or the whole business transaction was mainly through the barter system. You had something that I needed, I had something that you needed, and so let's come together and then exchange our good and stuff. You go happy, I go happy. Okay, so that was also the same thing. That is where the pastoralists actually used to give their leather and cheese, the meat, to the people who were growing crops, who needed them, and naturally they would take the crops in exchange of them. And one thing which just I and the manure of the penned flock, guys. What is a penned flock? Penned flock is essentially flock. We all know, a group of animals. Uh, that is a flock of animals, and it can also be the birds of the same feather flock together, stay together. That kind of, you must have heard the proverb. But what is a penned flock? Penned flock is essentially the enclosures. If those animals, you can have a system where the animals are independent, move around all the time, free to move around. They return in the evening, move out in the morning once again, but they are free. But penned flock is where the animals stay under enclosures, which you would call boundaries. You keep them under boundary. So you have a boundary erected, maybe using wood or whatever, and then you have many, many animals inside. So what they are saying is the manure of the pen flock. Manure would naturally, you understand what a manure is. The animal waste, that is, for them it is the fecal matter, but then it is a great manure to a farmer, which you in Hindi call gobar or whatever it is. So if if they were in enclosures, the farmers used to have a huge advantage because they used to get all that manure in great quantity. We shall continue.